Hello, I'm Charlotte from Creative Wilderness, and welcome to Brand Stories, a series that's going to go behind the brand of some of the amazing entrepreneurs, business owners, and startups I've worked with. So, let's hear the brand story. Welcome to another brand story, and I'm really excited to be joined in the morning, I'm in the evening, by Kelcie over in America. So welcome, Kelcie. Do you want to kind of say hello, let people know what you do, and a little random fact maybe about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I've really enjoyed this series and just the intentional connections that you really make with the people you work with, Charlotte. So yeah, very, very excited to be here. I'm Kelcie. I'm a copywriter for sustainable brands. Most often, I support sustainable B2Bs with things like white papers, case studies, and then brands all across the board with their blog posts. And I'm also a big sucker for any sort of brand that has a really unique brand voice that's either really poetic or super punchy or kind of fun and snarky. A lot of times with the writing that I'm doing, I'm stuck within a bit of a dry B2B world. And so anytime I get the chance to write something that's a bit more cheeky or fun, I'm always excited to jump on that opportunity.
Today we're going to have a bit of a chat about sustainable copywriting, learn a bit more from Kelcie what it's all about, and chat through how copywriting is part of your whole brand and why it works really well to help you grow your business. We're going to hear a few examples of maybe some stories around brands that have improved their copy and messaging and how that's helped. Because sometimes with branding and copy and design and photography, it's really hard to give people hard facts, which I think we all struggle with. Like, well, what's the impact? But I think through telling stories, we can really understand the impact. And then we're going to touch on a bit of a hot topic at the moment around AI and copy and creativity and budget and that type of thing. And and then we'll hear a bit of a top tip from Kelcie around sustainable copywriting. So first of all, how's your business journey going? You want to share kind of how you got here and how it's going at the moment for you this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started copywriting at the end of 2021. Well, actually, more like mid 2021 now that I think about it. Basically, I took a copywriting course that some people will use months to get through. I did it in 30 days. It's called Write Your Way to Freedom. And I did it in 30 days because I was getting married. And I knew that if I didn't keep my momentum going, then I was like, maybe I never make it back to this after I get married, right? And that's partially because I had a really great job at the time. I was a community manager for a tech company. My bosses were absolutely incredible. I was getting paid well. I just wasn't fulfilled. And it was during this time in the States when we were seeing all of these really terrible wildfires all throughout California and Oregon. And it was actually all accumulating over the top of the city that I was living in at the time, which was Denver. And so at one point, Denver had a worse air quality than places like a lot of the major metropolitan cities over in China and some of these cities that we think of as the worst air quality, that you could potentially be breathing. Denver was ranking among them as some of the worst, and they were basically like, don't go outside, which if you have ever lived in Colorado, that's not going outside in the summer is sacrilegious. So it was a really weird time. And I just felt like there was more that I wanted to be doing for the planet. And so when I started to think about what I liked about all of my other jobs, as I was planning this career shift, I was like, the thing that I love about all of them is writing. So why don't I just find a way to do that? And maybe there's a way that I can do it and also support the planet. So from there, I took the course and kind of just hit the ground running. And ever since, and have just been kind of learning about where my sweet spot is, because copywriting is so broad. And I think that's maybe part of the reason that when people ask, what do you do? And I say, I'm a copywriter, they'll say something to the extent of, well, what is that? Or do you write patents? And I don't do either. I don't do that. So copywriting can be everything from your website copy to your email copy to your social copy to more formal technical marketing documents. It's a really, really broad term. And so it took me a little while to kind of narrow down where my sweet spot was and the clients that I really enjoyed working with. But once I did that, it's just kind of been off to the races. And then at the beginning of this year, we saw a really interesting shift this year. And I don't know if it was the same for you or not, Charlotte, but in the copywriting world, in the States, we had a recession, or we're kind of coming out in the mix of a recession. And then on top of that, we have this like massive launch of AI. And so the industry has kind of been like completely tipped on its head. And so I think a lot of us are still kind of figuring out, what does my role look like now, and how do I leverage these tools? Because ultimately these tools aren't going away. And so I think we're all just trying to figure out how we make the most of them and what makes the most sense to continue to really drive results for our clients.
You mentioned something, I thought that would be a great thing to ask you about, because a lot of people, myself included, feel like they enjoy writing, and I do enjoy writing like monthly newsletters and sometimes blogs, but writing website copy I found very, very hard. And a few people, business owners, have sort of said to me, well, what's the difference between a copywriter and a writer? And so do you want to tell people about that? Because I know the difference now, and it's very, very powerful. But it'd be great to hear from a copywriter the difference between being a writer and actually, hiring a copywriter.
Yeah, absolutely. So a copywriter is really specifically trained in persuasive techniques in order to encourage action. So while you may be a good writer, which means you're maybe great at connecting with people or telling stories or painting like some visual imagery, that's awesome. But can you get people to take the next step, to book the call, to make a sale, to fill out your contact form? And that's really what a copywriter is an expert in. And actually, we're not really trained to copyright in school. And if your only training is school style writing, then chances are you probably won't be a very great copywriter. And that's no shade against you. You could probably become a very great copywriter. You're just going to have to put some time in to learn a little bit about some of the persuasive techniques and how to approach an audience. And also, the other thing that's invaluable about a copywriter, I had someone tell me once that your copywriter is only as good as the interviews that they do. And there's that aspect too, that a lot of people will think, well, I know my brand, well, I know my audience, but I can just jump in and start writing. And ultimately, for something that's going to live like as your like front shop representative, your number one salesperson, you can't have that be just okay. Like that has to be really amazing. That has to resonate with the people that you're trying to connect with, and that has to inspire them to take action, which often requires more than just a really great story. Okay, an example of a time, to pivot to your question, an example of a time when someone came to me with some copy and we were able to work on it and the results that it produced. One of my clients, who I'm very excited to talk about them, they're called Waystone. They're basically, their mission or what they're doing is they take your found stones and then they turn them into a custom keepsake. And so basically you can send them any kind of stone, whether it's something that you found like out where you were on a hike, please collect responsibly. Or if it's like a brick from your childhood home or a piece of cement from outside of an apartment that's really important to you or something like that, you can send them that stone and they'll polish it up and put it in a setting, and they can make it either cufflinks or a necklace, or earrings. And they just do like really beautiful work. And to be able to see them like shine up a piece of cement for some reason, like prolonging that kind of like life and like creating something really important and memorable, and just how beautiful the settings are and the time and the effort they put into it is just fabulous. And so when they came to me, they were working on their website copy. They knew that they were going to need a copywriter to help them out with it a little bit, because they had like some testimonials and information and some had done some client research, but we really needed to dig in to it on a bigger scale. And so one of the mistakes I think that can happen sometimes is if we just look at like this really small group of folks that have purchased from you, or that are maybe this like test group that have agreed to be a part of it, that's great. But you also have to think about like, who are the clients that we're hoping to go after and find. And that took a lot of like data mining on my side to say, okay, like these like 15 to 20 people are like a really amazing starting point, because they give me an idea of who the people are that will really resonate with the product that you're creating. But like, we also have to understand who else they could be, and who else this would resonate with, and who else is already purchasing products like this, and do some of those competitive analyses. And so, yeah, we just basically hit the ground running with their website copy once we really had the research and the messaging refined. It always helps to start with some sort of like voice guide or like creative guide, where someone like you and I partner to create like, okay, this is what the design looks like and this is what the copy sounds like. And it just helps the brand from then on out. And it's been really great to see them use that voice guide throughout their social, throughout their website, throughout their emails, and also to see them like just their website really flourish, and to create a message that was really easy for people to connect with and to understand. There was a little bit of a disconnect between like what do they do and how do they create it, but once we refined that message, kind of polished it up like they do with their stones, that's what really allowed them to shine and connect with more folks, just on a broader scale, and really launch their business.
It's so true, because as we start, we think we have to do everything. And my first thing was getting a photographer, a professional photographer. And we'd think, oh, well, it's going to cost us more money, but actually it's so beneficial. And that person spent years and years and years doing that. And you're just basically trying to do the same thing you spent like a week researching a little bit about it. But there is this like reticence, isn't there, to invest and give away that creative control. But I think when you enlist someone to work with you on your brand, it's like they enhance it and make it much stronger. And when I've worked on brands, people are really close to it, and they've got a great vision, and their product or service is really, really good, but they can't kind of see the unique message that other people want to hear. And then obviously the visuals and the copy work together. So are there any kind of common mistakes that you see that people make around their copy and messaging?
Ooh, not starting with a voice guide, I think, is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. Like before you make anything else, like really figure out who you are, how you talk about things. Like you want someone to like imagine being able to flip to a random page in a magazine, or to just open an Instagram caption online and be able to read the caption and be like, oh my gosh, I think this is such and such. Like that's how recognizable your brand should be. And you can't be that recognizable, or at least that consistent, without a voice guide. So brands that are just like, okay, we're going to like cobble everything together and we're just going to move forward without it. It's funny. There's a lot of resistance from brands to be like, no, we just need website copy. And I'm like, no, we need to get aligned. And it actually ends up saving a lot of time to really sort everything out and say, okay, this is what the voice guide is going to look like. This is how it's going to apply to your website. And now go ahead and hand this off to your social person. Go ahead and hand this off to your email marketer. Go ahead and hand this off to, whoever else is going to be like writing on behalf of your brand. Your sales team can create emails around it even too. And so, I think that's the biggest mistake that I see on the back end, just as a copywriter. It's just worthwhile to take a little bit of time to really think about who you are and how you show up in the world. And one of my favorite pieces, I guess, of writing the voice guide, this is a little plug to like get people excited, because this would be something that I would want if I was listening to this. I think I come up with like a brand persona for like every single brand that I'm working with. And so a great example, I worked with someone who basically helps, they're a consultant, helping small businesses like grow really rapidly by acting as like the COO for them in their business. So that way the CEO can execute on bigger picture ideas and things like that. It helps businesses get out of the weeds. But I refer to her persona was called the Dream Wrangler. And it was about how like entrepreneurs and business owners have these big, beautiful ideas and they want to do everything. And her job is to wrangle the ones that make sense and like get them in line and like herd them to the right place to be. And so now when she writes, she keeps in mind like, okay, like how would the Dream Wrangler like think about this? And so that's just been like, she's like, I love it so much. I've added it to the bottom of like my email signature. And yeah, if anybody's interested in that service, her name's Bree Zoller, and she's absolutely amazing at Breezy Operation. But that just makes a really big difference in being able to show up consistently across every single platform, no matter who you're talking to. And when you hit those bumps where you're like, I don't know what to say in this caption, or I don't know what to put in my email signature, or I don't know what to send in this email, you can just refer back to like this persona to be like, okay, what would this person say? Which takes a little bit of the pressure off of you to come up with the content, and it creates consistency no matter who's writing on behalf of your brand. Because if they're a good writer, then they'll be able to adapt to the voice guide that you've given them, and you'll be able to gut check it a little bit easier and say, is this us or is this not us? I think on the front end, one thing that I see brands make mistakes of all the time is sustainable brands are not always great about telling their sustainable stories. A lot of times it gets buried somewhere, or there's like a sustainability tab. Like sustainable brands are still kind of learning how to weave their sustainable story all throughout their website. And I think the brands that I really love to work with have baked sustainability into every single aspect of everything that they do. So that's a complicated and hard story to tell, um, because it has to show up in so many places and make sense without distracting from the sale. And so I have a couple of like key points that I always try and make sure that I connect to sustainability on whenever I'm working on a website or something like that. And that's, is this on the homepage somewhere where it's quick and easy to see? And even better if there's fun graphics associated with it. If there's, a pile of trash that grows, or if there's like trees that populate, like something that's like interactive and can like kind of catch their eye, because sustainability is becoming such an important factor when it comes to purchasing decisions. I also want to make sure that it's on the about page, especially if you're baking sustainability throughout your whole entire operations and it's not just like an afterthought. You want to make sure that that's included in that story. If you have a sustainability page, obviously it lives there. And then especially for like product-based like e-com brands, if you don't have like the sustainability aspects in your product descriptions, you're losing customers. Because when I go to a product page and I'm going to buy something new, I say, how long is this going to last? What's it made of? And what do I do with it when it's done? And if you don't answer all those questions for me, I'm less likely to buy to you, because I can tell you haven't thought about the full life cycle of your product. And so it's really important to include that information and tell that sustainability story there. And that's one mistake that I see brands make all the time, that you're telling me that you're so sustainable in this and that, but as I'm going to look at, for a great example is my husband and I were looking at, we're building our home right now, and we are trying to decide what to do our back patio as, and we were looking at decking information, and I couldn't figure out if this specific deck company had a buyback program or not. But I'm like, I don't really want to buy plastic, but I recognize wood doesn't have a very long life cycle, and there's a maintenance aspect of it and a staining aspect of it. And if you could just tell me, yeah, and then at the end you can send it back to us and we'll recycle it and make new ones out of it, that I'm much more likely to purchase from you, because I know this life cycle can just continue and continue and continue, at least as long as plastic can continue, which is a rant in and of itself. But all of that is to say that it's really important to tell these stories at all these different places. And that's another reason why you might want to bring in a copywriter to say, this is a complicated story to tell. We're doing a lot of really great things, and we want to make sure that people who come to our website know about all the great things they're doing and can find that information so they can make an informed purchasing decision.
We were going to chat a little bit about how, branding and copy work together, and then chat a little bit about the AI. So yeah, first of all, should we talk about how copywriting feeds into brand and how they can work together, brand design? When I say brand, your copy is your brand as well. So I don't want people to think like copy and brand. But I think, design, photography, copy, messaging, strategy are basically your whole brand. So yeah, how do you think that they work together when you've got like great design, great copy, great branding?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100% they work together. And it makes it so your brand is instantly like recognizable. And I think if you're having a hard time envisioning what this looks like, I always get his name wrong, but Yvon Chouinard's Let My People Go Surfing, the founder of Patagonia. Surprise, surprise, the sustainability girl is talking about Patagonia. But his book is really phenomenal at outlining like every single aspect of like, here's how we think about photos, here's how we think about copy, here's how we think about videos, here's how we think about graphics. And it's just really intentional. And because of that, once you learn all that, you realize, oh, that's why I know when something is Patagonia. Like that's why it doesn't matter. Like I can see a billboard where it doesn't have their logo on it, and I can still be like, this is probably Patagonia. Or being able to kind of like position yourself like REI did with the opt outside movement, or giving their employees Black Friday off to go be outside and in nature and things like that. Like creating these really quintessential aspects of your brand that become memorable and recognizable makes you it starts to make your brand kind of feel like a friend to people, honestly, because they feel like they know you, they feel like they know what they can expect from you, and there's like a consistency in the way that you show up and the things that you stand for. And in a world where we've kind of, our only consistency has been like capitalism, sell, it's kind of nice to get like a genuine and intentional, it's really nice to get a genuine and intentional brand who is saying like, yes, this is the way we show up and here's how we're thinking about it. And here's why. And I think your sustainability principles can be applied to all of that, whether it's like we take really minimal pictures and we don't have a ton and we repeat them because we just don't want to take up that kind of space on the internet because that has a carbon footprint, or whether it's, you're really snarky about climate change, or you're really gentle about the way that you talk about climate anxieties, or, your color palette is another one that's like really, really specific to who you are and how people come to recognize you. That if picture the Target logo in like blue, that means nothing to you, right? And so it's just so important that all of those things speak to each other and interact with one another as like each their own points of the triangle, that you don't actually have a full shape if you aren't taking into account how things like photography, copywriting, or your brand voice and your brand design all fit together, because they're really important.
So how have you found AI, and what would you say to people who maybe would be looking at the cheaper tools or the AI related tools, and is it a good thing, is it a bad thing? We won't talk ages on AI because it could be a whole other thing, but we'll chat a little bit about it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I don't know if you watch The Simpsons or not, but there's an episode of The Simpsons where Marge, who's Homer's wife, for those who aren't familiar, basically like does this whole thing where she like tries to change the world, make this positive change, like in their town, and like it works out, but kind of not as she's expected. And at the end of the episode, they're like, "Well, what did you learn from this?" And she's like, "I learned that anyone can change the world, but it doesn't mean that they should." And I just, that has been like that. There's like two pop culture references that have been embedded deep into my mind. That one, that like anyone can write whatever, but that doesn't mean that they should, especially with AI now. It's kind of in the back of my head. And then two, I think about, as a copywriter, there's definitely this moment of like anxiety, and is my job going to be replaced, and what happens next, and what does the industry look like? And it's a big shift, 100%. But I think about the episode of The Office where the Michael is having a really hard time because they are launching like a new website, and they're moving it into the 21st century. And what will this mean for the sales team if everyone can just place their paper orders online? And it's just like kind of a mess. And I feel like that's what we're in right now. Like Ryan hasn't quite put the company like up in flames yet, but it kind of feels like that's where we're headed. And also, it's like not going to go anywhere at this point. It's basically what we've seen. So when it comes to AI, a lot of people think, great, now I can write a lot of content on my own, and you can. But this is really more so a tool for writers, is kind of what I've found. Because at the end of the day, you still have to be able to understand things like SEO best practices, or you still have to be able to understand copywriting techniques, or you still have to be able to understand like plagiarism and things you can and can't say, and like nuances and getting facts wrong and how that could potentially affect your brand. And so a lot of brands will think like, yes, like I now don't need my copywriter, and I can just source all of this out to ChatGPT, which is $20 a month, which is way more affordable. But at the end of the day, unless you know like all of the little skills that like the copywriter kind of puts into it, and the finessing that the copywriter puts into it, you have the potential to end up with something that just doesn't sound very like, it's going to sound generic. And you can ask it to write in your brand voice, but you have to know to do that. Like there's so many prompts that you have to know to do, that it's just like you could be writing your blog, but if you don't know SEO, then it might not show up anywhere. It's kind of the same with ChatGPT, that you can write everything on your own, but if you don't really know how to leverage it and tweak it and the right prompts to ask, then you're going to end up with something that isn't very authentic or isn't very unique. And it's just something that anybody could basically generate if they had a ChatGPT account. And so it's a tool that I would say that absolutely everyone should play around with. That it's great for writing like thank you notes to an aunt you're not very close with, who maybe sent you a birthday present. I don't know. But when it comes to your brand, proceed with caution and find a writer who can help you with it. I think there are a lot of writers out there right now that have shifted and have changed, what they charge in order to be able to like leverage this specific type of, give me 1 second. I'm going to close the door. Sorry, Charlotte. Sorry, that was mid rant, and I probably should have ended on a more succinct note now that I think about it. Whoops. Okay, let me think. Where was I at? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's kind of a tool to help writers write faster. And so I would recommend finding a writer who's using that tool and leveraging it. An example, I recently decided to launch a done in a day, which I've never been able to offer before with blog posts because it just takes too long to write them. But now I can do a done in a day where I create 6 blog posts, leveraging AI, my copywriting expertise, and my SEO knowledge in order to create 6 blog posts for you in one day at a much more affordable price than I would have been able to before because I have AI to help me now. And that all that is to say that, like, yeah, you can do it on your own, but get ready for a little bit of a steep learning curve, especially as things change and grow, because I don't think AI is a great replacement for a writer now, but it is a great way for the writer to create all the content you've ever needed at maybe a more affordable price than before because they're able to spend a little bit less time on it.
Yeah, and I think in the sustainable world, I try and think, your products, they're probably not the cheapest around. You've got more meaning behind them. You're not just selling it on Amazon, and the only reason people are buying is because you've come up number 1 on Amazon and you're the cheapest. And using AI, it almost feels like, yeah, there's no craft in it, and it's lacking that human connection if you used it completely without the help of a copywriter or someone. And the design stuff I've seen, and I played around with it in the Mid-Journey, I think the design one's called, because I think it's useful. You need to understand these tools. They're here, and it's not all. I think there's positives and negatives, but it made me feel a little bit like sick because it's like you can just tell it's not been crafted by a human. And when I've read some of like the poems, some people are like, oh, it's amazing, but if you read poetry, you're like, yeah, it's just not. It's just not amazing.
You were talking like as sustainable brands, you're creating a really unique product. And you're leading the industry, right? Like you're at the forefront of this big shift, this big change that we need in our planet. AI takes everything that's written on the internet and then it regurgitates it in a different way. So that way you can use it without plagiarism most of the time. That's not thought leadership. That's not leading your industry. That's not creating something new. And I think the same goes with the work that you do too, Charlotte, is that if you want to create something really unique, really outside of the box, really defining for you and your brand, you can't do that with AI. You still need a really talented person to help you do that. AI hasn't figured that out yet. And so if you are trying to build a brand that's pushing the envelope, if you aspire to be Patagonia one day, you shouldn't be using AI, like really in any form or capacity, because you need to be looking at things that no one has ever done before, saying things no one has ever said before. And AI can't do that for you. It's literally just not possible yet.
It's so true about the idea that you're a thought leader, and it's the same if you're expecting people to invest in your message and your mission and your products, that you can't just go onto Canva and create your brand on there, which is similar, I suppose, for copy. And I see it, by all means, I use Canva. It's similar like you do with your Done for a Day. I create templates so that they have got this strong brand, and then they can go off and use it on Canva, so they don't have to keep coming back for me to create designs. But you still need that initial like expert guidance and someone to set it all up for you. And yeah, what gets you into your flow state? So what do you love doing away from the screen to get you into that kind of great creative copywriting mindset?
Well, since we met, I've been taking a ton of inspiration from you and just seeing the way that you run your business and like your intentionality around incorporating nature into your process and things like that. So I've definitely been taking more breaks, more walks, like just trying to get outside over the weekends and take quick adventures into the mountains and things like that. So thank you for that. That's been incredibly helpful to my flow state. I think the other thing that I use that is like really helpful when I just need to like sit down and write is I use Brain FM. I'm not an affiliate. I probably should be, but it's like picture the best, most productive Spotify playlist that you have out there and then times it by like 100. There's just something about the way that they have like curated their music for specific things, whether it's meditation, whether it's creativity, whether it's reading, whether it's winding down to go to sleep. It's just really helpful. And their music is really based on like the neurological pathways in order to help your brain best access those. And as someone who's easily distracted by like words, I'm never going to be the person that's like listening to Taylor Swift and also like trying to write, your brand content because I just really need to be focused. And so, yeah, Brain FM really helps me tap into that.
Brand FM? Or?
Oh, Brain FM. Sorry.
Brain FM.
Brain FM. Yes. Thank you.
I've not heard of that. Yeah, I would never listen to the type of music that I listen to when I work. I'll be like, electronic focus or like
totally.
Yeah, but I wouldn't listen to it at home. But yeah, when I tried to sort of put on like an indie rock band that I love, I'm just getting like distracted trying to like sing along. So it's so interesting that different when you want to focus, you need different type of music, and like you say, words would just get in the way. I find it hard to listen to the radio. Actually, I used to listen to the radio when I worked in agencies, but yeah, I can't listen to the radio now. It's more that like focus space. Amazing.
Yeah, I think too. The other thing is that if you listen to like your focus music on your Spotify or your Apple Music people, I don't know how you do it, but you listen to it on your Spotify and then your Wrapped comes out, your Wrapped is ruined by just like your random focus music. Like my 2020 Wrapped was just like all my focus music, and I was like, well, this isn't even fun to listen to. Like I'll never put this on like a drive or something like that because it's just the focus music. My husband was like, what are you listening to? And I was like, it's just so I can pay attention. So I also love having those two spheres separated in it. And it just like, it's like creating the habit of like not working in bed. So that way, when you get to your desk, it's like a cognitive like switch. The same goes for the music that I'm like, okay, now it's time to write. And I've like established that muscle by doing that over and over and over again with that specific habit. And so, yeah, when I open my Spotify, I know I'm going to get nothing done. But if I open my Brain FM, well, that's going to get done.
Yeah, because actually, my daily playlist on Spotify now is just really random. It just goes from, like really random focus music to stuff that I like. And so I can't do just play me whatever I enjoy on that type of thing. So yeah, definitely Brain FM. We will check that out. So Kelcie, is there where should people go to find you? Is there anything you want to share, like for them to check out after our chat on like a blog or anything like that, or newsletter type thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I realized this in hindsight branding previously that my name is really not great for things like this, but you can find me at Kelcie Otties copywriting.com. It's spelled KelcieOtties copywriting.com. All around, just everyone's going to get my name spelled wrong for the rest of my life, which is fine because they've been getting it spelled wrong the whole first part of my life. I used to have a nice,
they'll have it.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Go to the page, find the link. If you're listening to this in your headphones and washing your dishes, there's no way you're going to be able to make it happen. So unfortunately, that's just the life that I live. That's my cross to bear. And I would just love to connect with like other sustainable businesses to hear about like. More than I don't really even have a sales pitch, honestly. I would just love to connect and like learn like where are you struggling? Like where are you having a hard time? Where do you feel like you're losing people along the client journey? Where are they straying? Like let's have some conversations about that. Just book like a quick 15-minute call, mention that you heard about me here. And I just love to talk through whatever that issue is with you and just get a better understanding of what the difficulties you're trying to navigate, because ultimately you're the one really trying to save the world. You're the Batman to my Robin. And so I just want to support you however I can. And I'm always happy to have those genuine conversations about marketing just to help move the needle forward for you at minimum, or maybe we'll find an opportunity to work together. But yeah, we'd just love to know what you're struggling with and how I could potentially help.
Yeah, definitely get in touch with Kelcie. We just connected, I think, on LinkedIn, and then we had a chat and got on, and it all bloomed from there. So it's even though people think that the digital world there's lack of connection, it's actually amazing that I can be chatting to Kelcie over where she's got a mountain view, I think, behind her, and it's in the morning time, and I'm just about to go home in the evening in the UK. But thank you. There's so many amazing tips. I've absolutely loved chatting to you about copy. About AI, and I learned loads from you. So big thank you. And I'm sure everyone else listening has found this super useful too. Thank you so much, Kelcie.
Thanks for having me. It's been so much fun.
Bye-bye.